to mobilize Nigerians to reject the deleterious economic policies of imperialism imposed on the government via the IMF and World Bank. This is the time to question all external loans incurred by the federal government and the state government. This is the time to demand public accountability. This is the time to fight corruption, official corruption in Nigeria. This is the time for Nigerians to monitor the budgets of the federal, state government, and even local government. Right now, we only monitor the budgets of the federal government. This is the time.
It's been 1 year of President Tinubu's government. Nigerians have been going through a lot of hardship. What's your assessment of the first year of President Tinubu? What are your expectations? Moving forward, how should this government changes their trajectory with regards to its economic policies?
You see, frankly speaking, I have read a number of reviews, or rather assessments, of the regime by public commentators. Quite a number of them well informed. The impression I make, erroneous impression, that this regime is wicked. No! It is an ideological battle being waged against the Nigerian people. Under the Constitution, there is the National Economic Council, provided for by Section 153 of the Constitution. That body is constituted by the Vice President as chair, the Governor of the Central Bank, the Minister of Finance, and the 36 state governments. That is the only body empowered by the Constitution to advise the President on the economic policies of the country. Because the governors in particular, because they feel the pains of their people, so they are required to challenge the policies of Abuja. Mr. Vice President, Mr. Minister of Finance or Madam Minister of Finance, Governor of the Central Bank, your policies are not in the interest of our people. Can we agree on a welfare package for our people and persuade the President to reject the obnoxious advice of the IMF and World Bank, so that we can develop at our own pace? But what has happened? That body has abdicated its responsibility to the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. So those two bodies now insist and they demand from our government: remove fuel subsidy, remove electricity subsidy, impose harsh economic conditions in the country, and make life, introduce taxes and levies so that you can have money to pay your debts and maintain the prodigal public service. So then, in the last 25 years, in the past 25 years, successive regimes
I've continued to pursue these policies.
Successive regimes have been asking Nigerians to be patient and bear with the government, that there will be light at the tunnel, at the end of the tunnel. In fact, much longer than that, particularly under the Babangida administration, when the structural adjustment program was imposed on it, we were told, I think it was by Chief Falana, second to that, Minister in charge,
exactly,
that, like in the Bible, there will be 7 years of suffering and 7 years of good. The governments have abolished that government embark on privatization, cheap sale of the assets of the country, commercialization, removing subsidies and increasing social services, retrenchment of workers, and so on and so forth. Every regime has implemented one structural adjustment program or the other, and they call it different names. So the point I'm making there for you, any regime that is subservient to foreign economic forces cannot address the problems of foreign economy. Now, the current Bola Tinubu administration recognizes that its twin economic policies of removal of fuel subsidy and floating of the naira have caused untold economic hardships in the country. Whereas Nigerians are demanding for a review of this policy, the IMF and World Bank are clapping for the government. And this is the way to go. Impose more so that they can be disciplined. So for Nigerians, if you are demanding for improvement in your conditions of life, and this is my advice to the Nigerian Labour Congress and TUC, it's not enough to have a minimum. It won't work. Even if they give you 400,000, it won't work. For me, there are other laws, other welfare laws that we must now set the Nigerian in motion for implementation. For instance, you have the National Housing Act, which has mandated the Federal Mortgage Bank to build houses for workers. Because at the end of the day, the month, a certain percentage of the salary of a worker is deducted and saved by the National Housing Authority. We must make that law to work. Secondly, you have the National Health Insurance Authority. Used to be a scheme. That body is empowered to make health accessible and available to workers and other enrollees. Everybody will enroll in that scheme. I have a member of my family who just delivered a baby in the UK. And my wife and I asked her, how much did you pay for the hospital, your hospital bill? Can we help? He said, no, I didn't pay a dime. I said, what do you mean? He said, no. The National Health Insurance scheme works. 2, my husband and I have paid our taxes. So we must also implement our own law to take care of the challenges of workers and other enrollees. Furthermore, there is the Shares Right Act applicable in Abuja and the Shares Right Law applicable in every state in Nigeria. Those laws are provided that every Nigerian child shall have free and compulsory education from primary to junior secondary school. Again, that law was working. And I'm also saying now, Labour and other progressive civil society organizations must now begin a demand that policy, that law, those laws be reviewed to allow free and compulsory education at least up to senior secondary school level. The government is now talking of loan facilities for indigent undergraduates. We are saying that turn it into a grant. Invest in it and educate our people. Now, so that if these welfare policies captured by law are implemented by the government, the suffering of our people will be significantly reduced. And that is why this struggle must not end. with an agreement on the new national law. We must now move forward to challenge the living standards, the prodigal lifestyles, the ostentatious living of public officers and ensure that we implement policies that will take care of the interests of our people and not policies of the IMF and World Bank. So this government must stop deceiving Nigeria. That is going to improve the conditions of our people. You cannot implement neoliberal policies and improve the lives of the people. Please, this is very important. The floating of the naira, I've said it, it's illegal. Section 16 of the Central Bank has imposed a duty on that bank, a mandatory duty, to fix the exchange rates of the naira vis-a-vis other currencies. Didn't they say that market forces were going to be fixing the price? Why are they now bringing out a rash of policies to save the naira? But those policies won't work. The constitution requires the government. The Nigerian constitution, section 16, has imposed a duty on the government, not section 19, a duty on the government to promote a new international economic order. The new international economic order in the world today is the challenge of the BRICS. I'm talking of Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, and China. They are now being joined by other countries, including Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Ethiopia, and others. In fact, about 7 countries have just applied to join that body. I don't know, frankly up to now, why the government of India is not prepared to join a body that will not require us to look for dollars to import goods from certain countries. And I've said it, nobody has challenged me. In 2018, Nigeria signed an agreement with China, currency swap, so that we can buy goods in naira in China. Last year, the goods imported from China by Nigeria were valued at $26 billion. What we sent to China was barely $1.6 billion. We have asked the government, ensure that you increase the volume of trade, ensure that the currency swap is reviewed again. But it's going to expire in July this year. Even if you don't want to join BRICS, review that agreement with China. Discussions are also going on with India to have currency swap, because we are importing goods from China more than the entire Europe and America. And what is more, most of the goods being imported can be produced in Nigeria. The Dangote refinery come on stream very soon. The Nigerian government has interest in that refinery. We have shares in the company. But Nigerians are not asking questions. Why is the Dangote company importing crude oil from America? What has happened to our crude? At the very least, by law, the NNPCL is required, or rather, 445,000 barrels of crude oil are dedicated for domestic consumption. What happened to that policy? The very least is that 445,000 must be given to Dangote to be fine for the country. But NNPC cannot say publicly that we have given out those barrels of crude oil. So we must begin to ask questions from the government on the management of the or mismanagement of the economy, so that our country can banish poverty. We have no business with poverty. We don't need loans. If you can collect the government. And I have suggested to the government, as a matter of fact, to collect over $100 billion, all by the IOCs, international company, and the NNPC, from our dividends, the dividends from LNG, our dividends had been valued, I think, about $34.5 billion, which the NNPC had collected in the last 20 years. That money was meant to be paid to the Federation Assembly. In the case of the IOCs, following the judgment of the Supreme Court, delivered in October 2018, the federal government has now confirmed that the IOCs are owing the country $62 billion. Given the political will, the government can collect such huge fund today, so that you can address the crisis in the foreign exchange market. And you also ask yourself, this business of looking for dollars, for what purpose? For payment of goods from by the elite. You remove money from the foreign reserves of the country to satisfy the taste of the elite. How can you in this age and time ask Japan to send you about 500 jeeps at a cost of $150,000 per one, when you have assembly plants in the country producing jeeps and other vehicles? So if we are, and you can't spend money on people going to pilgrimage, looking for dollars for people going to pilgrimage. No, it's against the Constitution. It's even against the religion subscribed by Nigerians. Section 10 of the Constitution provides that the government, the state, Nigerian state, shall not adopt any religion. So you cannot adopt Islam and Christianity and be sending people to Jerusalem and Mecca. No! For Christians, from Genesis to Revelation, it is nowhere in the Bible that a Christian from any part of the world will visit Jerusalem or Jordan. And by the way, the majority of those cities are now under the control of Muslims. And for Muslims, nowhere is it stated in the Holy Quran that you must go to Mecca. It says, if you are able, physically, if you are able, financially, you can embark on a trip to Mecca. It is not stated that government shall sponsor you. So you see, religion is illegal. It's unconstitutional for the government to spend a huge sum of 90 billion naira or more to sponsor Mecca. But for the war in Gaza, Christians will have demanded for their own subsidy to go to Jerusalem, which is not provided for by the Bible.
Basically touched a lot of the experts. As a final reflection, and in terms of the future outlooks, what do you foresee for the remaining years of Tinubu's presidency? And in the light of the past year, what advice would you offer the president in order to improve his administration, his performance, and gain public trust?
The government has a number of advices. So I'm not in a position to advise them. I can advise the trade unions or ASU or other organizations of our people. I'm not in a position to advise them. I can only make demands.
So what would be your intervention?
My position is that instead of advising the government, I would rather advise the Nigerian people to get organized and make their demands under the constitution. Nigerian people are entitled to. I've just told you, there are certain irreducible minimum standards that have been incorporated and codified in Nigeria. So this is the time to demand for education for our children. Right? This is the time to have demand in line with the law for free education and free health, for physically challenged people. It's in the law. This is the time to demand for the implementation of the National Health Act that has imposed a duty on the government to fund a basic comprehensive health package for our people. This is the time to ensure that the National Health Insurance Act works so that all those who subscribe to that scheme will have health provided at affordable prices. This is the time to ensure that the 20.2 million children, out of school children, are picked from the street. The government must be compared and located in schools. This is the time to ensure that every child in Nigeria is given free and compulsory education from primary to junior secondary school. This is the time for the labor movement to lead this role to ensure that the free education policy is improved upon, but more prayer on the National Assembly and the state houses of assembly to ensure that the relevant laws are amended to make education free and compulsory for every child from primary to senior secondary school. This is the time to have a review of the student loan scheme so that it is converted to a grant, because it is the right of every Nigerian child to have education. This is the time. This is the time to mobilize Nigerians to reject the deleterious economic policies of imperialism imposed on the government via the IMF and World Bank. This is the time to question all external loans incurred by the federal government and the state government. This is the time to demand public accountability. This is the time to fight corruption, official corruption in Nigeria. This is the time for Nigerians to monitor the budgets of the federal, state government, and even local government. Right now, we only monitor the budgets of the federal government. This is the time to save the naira. And you can only save the naira if you encourage production of goods and services in Nigeria. So for me, these are the challenges before the Nigerian people. The government would then be forced. The government would then be forced to react to the demands of the Nigerian people. And by the way, for Nigerians who insist that the trade unions must wage on struggles in Nigeria, this is the time to educate our people. In Ghana, in Kenya, in South Africa and other African countries, political parties do not exist for elections alone. In Ghana, in Kenya, in South Africa, it is the opposition political parties, right, that challenge the policies of the government by bringing up their people to protest, to improve their living conditions. But here, everybody, including lawyers, who are not challenging illegal policies of the government. Oh, Labour is not doing this, Labour is not doing no. So this is the time to mobilize Nigerians, to demand for their rights. And Nigerians are not asking for much. I haven't made suggestions outside the laws of the country, but I'm now saying we have a package of welfare laws in our country. We cannot continue to observe them in the statute books. We must now bring them out